Welcome to Weedsday Wednesday, Tucson, Arizona's #1 online radio podcast about all things medical cannabis. Your host, Belle,
and the Cannabis Kid. Our show features news, interviews, and all the latest information about anything and everything medical cannabis related in Tucson, Arizona,
and the world at large.
We'd love to hear from you. Please give us a call live at 646-915-8421. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on all social media, or email dhctucson@gmail.com.
we'd like to thank Tumbleweed Health Center and Studio C, along with our media sponsors, for hosting our show every week. With the lowest price certifications in town, you'll find hemp products, accessories, and all things related to medical cannabis education.
Visit Tumbleweed Health Center at 4826 East Garden Boulevard or online at tumbleweedshealthcenter.com. And remember, be safe
And safe.
All right, welcome to Weedsday Wednesday, everybody. Woo! How's everybody doing today? Excellent, excellent. It is 9 degrees already in Tucson, Arizona. Yeah, it's hot. It's been really super hot lately. Not as hot as this show. Weedsday Wednesday, everybody. Belle Star here. Cannabis Kid and Silver Sister are out there in the world. It's just us, guys. And we will be continuing our show with the hemp trial, Hemp versus Arizona. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Weedsday Wednesday, everybody. Over 13 years of this nonsense. Can you believe it? It's really hard to believe. And for all those that are wondering how many days until Christmas, 169 days until Christmas, 170 until it's over. For the bestie, June 9th. All right. Well, we are Weedsday Wednesday, bringing you lots of news, interviews, strain reviews, all sorts of things about the world of weed, cannabis, marijuana, hemp, pot, dope, whatever you want to call it. You call it what you want. We're here to report on it. And we're going to go back to the live YouTube video that was the trial a few weeks ago. But first, if you want to get your medical marijuana card in the great state of Arizona, come and see us at Tumbleweeds Health Center. We are now at 6224 East Speedway Boulevard. We share the building with the Good Leaf, our beautiful hemp and CBD store. You can check out tumbleweedshealthcenter.com and find out what all you can get certified for. Now, don't worry. Anywhere in the great state of Arizona, you can do telemedicine with us. Just click the telemedicine link and fill out the little form. It's just a small form. And then you can have your appointment right online. If you can't leave your facility, don't want to leave your facility, can't leave the house, or don't want to leave the house, rather sit in your car, drive down the highway, as long as you're careful, we don't care. But these are the conditions that you can get your medical marijuana card for. Now, you'll hear a bunch of conditions, and don't worry, if you don't hear your condition on the list, we can most likely get you certified. If whatever you're going through, if you're having a treatment or medication or anything that you're going through that's causing something on this list, we can get you certified. A lot of things in the world cause chronic pain, nausea, seizures, um, persistent muscle spasms. They even may cause cancers, etc. So you can get your card even if you don't hear what's on this list. But most of this stuff, you will probably have records for. So bring those down if you have them. If you have PTSD, that's the one condition that you have to have records for. It doesn't matter. They have to be in the last 12 months. The state needs to see that the state of Arizona's health department needs to see that you're getting ongoing treatment for this. All right. So PTSD, cancer, glaucoma, AIDS, those kinds of conditions you'll have your records for. Chronic pain, that can cover everything from fibromyalgia, migraines, arthritis, DDD, all your disc problems, all your back problems, your muscle cramps, menstrual cramps, anything as long as it's over 2 months long. That's what the state of Arizona's health department considers chronic. Severe nausea, seizures, including epilepsy, HIV, Hep C, ALS, Crohn's disease, agitation of Alzheimer's disease, cachexia or wasting syndrome, severe and persistent muscle spasms, including multiple sclerosis, MS. And like I said, if you've got something like anxiety or sleep disorder or stress, autism, Asperger's, if whatever you're doing, the medication, the treatment itself is causing one of these conditions, you can get your medical marijuana card for that. It's that simple, and we will help you do that for sure.
If you suffer from one of these medical conditions and have been diagnosed by an Arizona licensed physician, medical cannabis may help relieve your symptoms. Tumbleweeds Health Center is Arizona's premier cannabis certification, health, and education center. Our primary focus is to help the patients of Arizona obtain their medical marijuana card and educate everyone about medical cannabis. With current medical records, approval is a simple process. Contact Tumbleweeds Health Center to see if you qualify for the Arizona medical marijuana card.
Are chronic conditions holding you back from a happy, healthy life? Get on the right track with Tumbleweeds Health Center. Our CBD products are formulated to fit your health lifestyle.
I would definitely say that CBD has changed my life. I mean, I don't worry about my dog anymore, and I don't worry about sleeping anymore.
Tumbleweeds Health Center, voted #1 health center in Tucson, has created a proprietary number of CBD blends, each designed to promote health and well-being. Let Tumbleweeds Health Center show you how CBD products might help you improve your life the natural way.
That's right. Give us a call, 520-838-4430. You can come down to 6224 East Speedway Boulevard. We are in the Bookman's Beyond Bread Shopping Center. Mostly Books is there, Family Dollar's there. We are across the street from Trader Joe's and Starbucks. Oh, and some good sushi over there. Sashiko. I don't know. It's just really good. You should get it. All right. So we are going to go back to the live stream of the hemp trial. And once again, this is not my recording, but we are very happy that this guy recorded it so that you too can hear what's going on. So far, Tom Dean has been questioning Sully Sullivan from HITA, the Hemp Industry Trade Organization Association, sorry. And that's the first 45 minutes. He's got another guest coming on that they're going to question now. So here we go. We'll just continue on with this. Give it 1 second while they switch.
I know he was in before, but I don't know if he's got now. Is he still here?
There we go.
There he is. Will you unmute yourself so we can make sure we can hear you?
Hi, I'm getting there. Thank you, Judge. I appreciate your honor.
Okay, I can hear you. You can hear me.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can see you on the big screen. So we'll have you state and spell your name, then we'll have you sworn in.
Christopher Ware, CHRISTOPHER, capital WARE.
Thank you. Raise your right hand. You'll hear the clerk. She'll swear you in.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Counsel, go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Ware, thank you for being here, appearing virtually today. Would you mind telling us what your current occupation is? Certainly. Thanks for having me, you guys. I'm the founder of KCA Laboratories. We're an independent third-party research
and testing facility optimized in the cannabis space. We was founded in 2018, and we brought forth a different kind of analytics, the scrutiny of testing that myself and the chemists that I hired come from ancillary industries, horse racing, natural products, pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, pharmacokinetics, and research, and rolled that into the hemp industry, and really have accelerated much of what was been talked about today, which is the ability for processors, farmers, consumers to really be educated and know what's in their products.
Okay.
And yeah, go ahead.
Do you have an educational background in forensics or some related allied field?
Yes, chemical forensics, natural sciences, which was all three disciplines of physics, biology, and chemistry at Xavier, and did some my graduate work at UAB in Alabama.
Okay. And what would you consider to be your areas of specialization?
Forensic chemistry, analytical chemistry, chemical detection, testing, and then threshold, threshold allowances on analytes, mostly contaminant analytes, pesticides, heavy metals, solvents, microbial work, and then chemical profiling like cannabinoid profiling.
Okay. Your company, KCA Labs, how long has it been in existence?
Since early 2019.
Okay. And again, its, I guess, primary focus is in doing what exactly?
Solely a cannabis testing lab. That's how it was designed. That's how we optimized all of our procedures. And since starting KCA, our footprint occupies clientele across all of the U.S. and in all 50 states and 23 countries.
Okay. Do you hold? Does the company hold certificates and licenses that allow them to do this testing?
Way too many. Yeah, so DEA, USDA, Kentucky, the various Department of Agriculture. We've had state contracts with Massachusetts, Department of Ag, Massachusetts, South Dakota, Tennessee, Illinois, Louisiana, as well as internationally with Anvisa in Brazil, which is the kind of like the Brazilian FDA. And Japan with their yeah.
Okay, we got the picture. Do you also assist your clients with regulatory compliance?
Every day.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Agricultural Improvement Act of 2018?
Yes, I am.
And associated regulations?
Correct.
Is there at any point is hemp required by law to be tested?
Federally, no. Well, federally, yes. When
is that test required?
It is required at the from the USDA standpoint and the Agriculture Improvement Act, the Farm Bill is required post-harvest and pre-harvest, both times.
Okay, so while the hemp is growing or close to when it's harvested, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Is there any requirement by law that it be tested? I'm sorry, let me back up. What specifically is it being tested for by law?
Just Delta-9 THC.
Okay, and what is?
Yes.
Right, and what is the restriction regarding Delta-9 THC?
0.03%.
Okay, and is there any what was that?
on a dry weight basis
And,
in plant material.
okay, is there any requirement in law that it be tested at any future point after that initial test?
Moving down to after we pass the federal level, no.
Okay.
Moving into the state, yeah, statutorily, there's states that have built very robust regulations on monitoring products and downstream products.
Okay. And what is a certificate of analysis?
Acronym would be the COA, and that's essentially what KCA provides. It's a certificate of analysis. It's a document that provides the test results for the testing that has been requested by the client or the jurisdiction, and it can be yeah, go ahead.
Sticking with you're talking about under federal law, the one required test that's near to harvest of the plant material is a COA generated as a result of that testing?
That's correct.
And okay, so that would be something that the grower would receive as proof that the plants were compliant with that 0.3% on a dry weight basis fiction.
That's correct.
Okay. How many clients does KCA have?
Tens of thousands of clients.
Okay. Any idea how many tests you process, I don't know, in an average day?
5,000 probably a day, give or take.
Okay. And
the lab operates 7 days 7 days a week, 365 a year.
okay. And how does that Delta 9 THC testing, how does that work? What's the testing process?
It's done through a separate assay. It depends on what the client orders for testing. If it depends if they're getting additional contaminant testing. Assays will go through an instrument called a high performance liquid chromatography. The acronym for that is HPLC. And that testing methodology is known, it's a validated method to preserve both neutral and acidic cannabinoids. Finished goods may go through a different testing process. It depends on the analytes that are indicated that are in the sample, if they're even known. There's different methodologies: liquid chromatography, mass spectrometry, and there's also GCMS approaches. However, most of those methods don't preserve acidic molecules and misrepresent what the composition of the sample is.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I might have missed it. What is your position at KCA Labs?
I'm the founder of the lab, and conduct. Are you back? I think I was.
We're still here.
Okay, sorry, Your Honor. I'm the founder of KCA.
Okay. And do you, as part of your job, your activities, do you try to stay abreast of the latest research regarding cannabinoid products?
We have a research division at KCA, albeit from the business aspect, it's not the fun side. It's always it's a red number when I look at it on the balance sheet. But we work with public and private ventures to conduct different pharmacokinetic studies, various methodologies and testing on enhancing testing in this genre, and research is a big component of KCA.
And are you aware of any research that indicates that hemp-derived cannabinoid products are inherently dangerous?
I'm not.
Okay. How many cannabinoids are in the cannabis sativa L plant?
120 plus. And that's one of the challenges that we've taken on at the lab. We're able to detect over 80, upward of 80, almost 90 different cannabinoids. And I believe we are one of the only labs with that ability in the country, if not the world. And that was brought on by, again, part of our research arm is identifying the quote unknowns. And we understand that there's the ability of providing that data back to our clients, back to regulators, back to everyone to understand that we can build the full composition of material.
Okay.
Is a challenge that we do every day.
Okay, let me ask you, are you familiar with when, for example, Delta 9 was first identified as a cannabinoid?
Delta 9 was back in the early 20s.
Mm-hmm. What about Delta 8 THC?
Delta 8 was shortly thereafter. And then it was purified or in the 60s by an Israeli research lab led by Raphael Mechelin, and then they pursued pharmaceutical applications with Delta 8.
So would it be fair to say that knowledge of THC cannabinoids has been in existence for decades?
It has.
Okay. Would you consider cannabinoids to be an essential component of the cannabis sativa plant?
Yes.
Can you talk about different types of hemp-derived cannabinoid consumable products?
Certainly, the previous witness gave an overview. There's inhalables, there's ingestibles, there's sublinguals, there's topicals, and then there's subsets of all of those, whether they're an ingestible as a beverage or a gummy, or in the form of a brownie or a cookie. In inhalables, we see vaporized products, we see vaporized oils, we see raw flower material, and then topicals, there's sublingual tinctures, there's lotions, there are suppository applications.
Thank you. Would you agree with the statement that all cannabinoids are psychoactive?
They have psychoactivity, yes. I would not agree that they are all intoxicating.
Okay. But CBD, for example, you would consider to be psychoactive?
They occupy receptors that are known to produce psychoactivity, but again, there's a challenge. Yeah.
What kind of psychoactivity?
Mild euphoria, maybe, for example, in the case of CBD, relaxation. Again, this industry is not allowed to make any medical claims or health claims or benefit claims, but again, there's certain interactions based off and that's a consumer by consumer effect.
Are all cannabinoids, let me ask another related question. Are all cannabinoids equally psychoactive?
No.
Okay. For example, are Delta 9 THC and Delta 8 THC, are they equally psychoactive?
No, they're not.
And in what way are they not?
There's purportedly Delta 8 is has a third less efficacy than Delta 9.
So would that be in layman's?
Sorry, do you mean a third of the efficacy or a third less?
A third less. Delta 8 is a third less stronger than Delta 9, as in.
So if Delta 8 is 66% effective, Delta 9 is 100% effective?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Just want to understand the numbers you were using. Sorry, Counsel.
Okay, thank you, Judge. And I want to just end with asking you to discuss the different types of manufacturing. So do some of these are some of these products directly extracted from the cannabis sativa plant?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Okay. And are others? Can you give me an example of a product that we directly extracted?
Any of the molecules can be directly extracted, but
In the form of a product, like for example, I don't know, THC beverages. Do they contain converted cannabinoids, or are they directly extracted cannabinoids? Or I don't know.
both. It would be both. So, but the availability for manufacturers or brands to obtain Delta 9 that's been derived through column chromatography is and that Delta 9, and Your Honor, that's for in layman terms, purified product that's been put through a filter, and they cut they cut at certain points to obtain purified material. There's also bioconverted material that's derived from CBD.
Let's talk about that real quick. What do you mean by bioconverted? Tell me what kind of
there's a difference between a synthetic cannabinoid and a bioconverted cannabinoid. Synthetic cannabinoid is something that has been created from building blocks that were not derived from, not part of a cannabis plant, a hemp plant. Bioconverted would be molecules that have been further assisted in the degradation process of cannabinoids to obtain a desired molecule, CBN, CBC, Delta 9, Delta 8, and they're done and they can make those with very high efficiency and purity to limit any contaminants.
Okay, so just so I understand, you're saying that those products you mentioned, which would include Delta 9 or Delta 8, they are basically, there's a process of conversion that starts with a naturally occurring part of the plant. I think you mentioned CBD. Is CBD a naturally occurring part of the plant?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and there's a process that can take CBD and convert it into a different naturally occurring cannabinoid like Delta 9 or Delta 8. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. Yeah, it's I call it bioassisted. All the cannabinoids want to cascade and degrade from the mother molecule, which is CBG, to the graveyard molecule, which is CBN. And in between those two molecules, you have 120 plus different cannabinoids that will form, evolve, proliferate, degrade, repeat until you get to CBN.
So I asked you earlier, are all cannabinoids equally psychoactive? You said no. I believe, correct?
That's correct.
And is there a wide variance in cannabinoids in terms of what their level of psychoactivity is?
Mildly. Yeah, I mean, CBD certainly occupies a receptor site that has psychoactive tendencies. Does it create any kind of, again, euphoria? It's a user experience. So I would say there is a wide variety. Yes, I would. CBG does the same. And things like CBC and CBT, CBE, these are all different cannabinoids is what I'm speaking about. Also, and then on the other side, you have Delta 9 and Delta 10 and Delta 8 that have that inhibit that receptor site way more effectively in our body and create a bigger effect.
And then are there other cannabinoids that are kind of in between?
They are.
Okay. Is there a scientific test, to your knowledge, that can determine whether or not a given cannabinoid is, quote unquote, intoxicating?
No.
Okay. So how would one ever figure out whether a given cannabinoid, I guess, crosses the line to become intoxicating?
You'd have to do a full tox study. You can do an in vitro tox study, but
To your knowledge, has there ever been such a study, toxicology study, that has explored the intoxicating effects of various cannabinoids?
yes, there are.
Okay. And how have have there been toxicology studies that have, for example, compared CBD to Delta 8?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. All right. But there's no scientific test. It would just be, you're saying that the research would just have to be a toxicology study, and that toxicology study would be based on what? Surveys or what?
They'd be done in a controlled environment with a lot of people use mouse or rat models that have prescribed dosages, and then the rats are terminated, and they biopsy their liver and their kidney and their brain and determine if there's any. Obviously, there's a monitoring, a physical monitoring. They're seeing if there's a visual effect, if they noticeably can tell a difference in their behavior. So they're doing behavioral analysis, but there's also they also do anatomical analysis to see if there's any reaction intramuscularly or within the system, the mammalia system. And these are most of these models start out as rat and mice models before they get installated into a human model.
And so when we're talking about cannabinoids, so does intoxication happen upon the consumption, whether by ingestion or inhalation, immediately, or does a certain amount of that product have to be consumed before it becomes intoxicating?
There's definitely a threshold limitation of when intoxication occurs.
So, like, for example, Delta 8 would not be necessarily intoxicating, depending on how much one consumes.
Depending on the dose.
Okay. And the same could be said about any cannabinoid. It's dose dependent.
Correct.
All right. And do you have any opinion about whether the studies on toxicology were accurate or biased? The ones that you referenced have been done?
They're, I would say, it's wherever the funding comes from, right? So, and whoever, it's unfortunate, but these tox studies are not cheap, and however they're paid for there could be a motive for or against.
Okay, so is it fair to say then that these existing toxicology studies are to some degree inconsistent with one another?
Potentially, yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you. Cross-examination, and we'll break for 15 minutes at 3 o'clock.
Sure, and I'll be quick, Judge. Good afternoon, Mr. Ware. Nick Clearman, nice to meet you.
I know, thank you.
Yes, I think you just testified, if correctly, right, that whoever basically funds the study that influences the outcome creates biases. Is that correct?
But potentially, most of the private funded stuff is coming from intra-industry people. They don't control the study, though. They're done through an independent party. Much as like myself, I'm an independent testing lab. As much as I rely on the industry to help the business, we still, the results are what the results are.
So your business is entirely funded from the marijuana and hemp industry, correct?
No, we have a food program. We do food safety testing as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said that your entire business earlier was dedicated to marijuana and cannabis testing.
We do pesticide testing for local farmers.
So you're not entirely related to marijuana testing then, is that correct?
If we let's just say these are hemp farmers that also grow corn and wheat.
You testified, so do you test hemp products in Arizona?
We do. I would assume so. We've got a client base that covers all 50 states, so I can assume, and I can't disclose my clients, but I assume that it captures some of the Arizona market.
You don't know what percentage of the Arizona market you test for?
No, and that's hard to say, Nick. We test a lot of the raw material going into products that are probably sold in Arizona and where that raw material comes from. And we also test a lot of the finished goods. We work the entire supply chain. So it's a challenge to understand what percentage of the Arizona market that would represent.
So fair to say you can't testify to what percentage of the Arizona market you test? I think the answer is no, right? You don't know.
I can't testify to that either if I knew the answer or not, because I can't disclose that our client information.
So you don't know the safety and efficacy of all products that are sold in Arizona, is that correct?
I have a good idea. I know a lot of the brands, but I would have to be able to provide that on a supplement discovery document.
That's fine. Quick question about hemp versus marijuana. Hemp is just a legal definition of a marijuana plant, correct?
No.
No, hemp and marijuana are a legal definition of a cannabis plant.
That's a better way to say it, thank you. THC that's derived from a hemp plant is no different from THC from a marijuana plant?
Correct.
I have no additional questions.
Sir, I have a few, and I want to ask you about some terminology, and I'll start with hemp and marijuana. Here's my understanding. You tell me if it's wrong. The plant is Cannabis sativa. If it's got low THC, you call it hemp. If it's got regular or high THC, you call it marijuana. Statute has a specific number for that, but in more general terms, people use hemp to refer to low THC cannabis, sativa, and marijuana to refer to others. Is that fair?
That's correct. At above 0.3%.
And that's the legal definition. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sort of like cherry tomatoes and Roma tomatoes. It's the same plant, but they have slightly different properties.
Your Honor, that's exactly right. It's a citrus tree, right? Is it an orange or a lemon or a grapefruit?
Better example for Arizona. Thank you. You distinguish intoxicating and psychoactivity, and there's been a little bit of sparring about that in this case. Just tell me what you understand the differences between those two terms to be.
Psychoactivity is an inhibition of a psycho receptor in our bodies that is known to be have psychoactive be psychoactive. Intoxicating is the effect of that inhibition of that receptor, which requires toxicology studies.
Okay, thank you. You also use the term cannabis space. That's a term I've heard a lot, and I've never been quite sure what the outlines of cannabis space are. Will you just tell me what that means in your understanding?
Yeah, I mean, Your Honor, for us as the cannabis space, as a testing lab, I don't know if what I'm receiving is hemp or marijuana until after I test it. In the unique, we occupy a unique niche in this industry, and again, I look at these like I'm a cannabinoids lab. Whether it's hemp derived or marijuana derived, we don't know that determination until after products have been received and gone through our testing processes and a report is generated. The plant is the same. It's a cannabis plant. If it has unfortunate levels that are higher than what a hemp farmer would was represented that they were growing, that it turns it from hemp to marijuana.
If somebody's selling hemp t-shirts or hemp seed oil, is that still considered part of the cannabis space? Is that all under that broad umbrella?
It certainly is. Those are cannabis plants that those are derived from, whether it's a fiber plant, a seed plant, or a cannabinoid plant.
Okay, thank you. I want to go to the 0.3% by dry weight. I think I understand. Well, by the way, when you extract THC, is it a liquid, a solid, or a gas?
It goes from a state of crude, which is the first extraction step, and that is we'll call it in a vitreous stage, to a distillate, which is a watered down vitreous stage, but very challenging. It's not liquid per se. It's definitely not a solid though. And then various cannabinoids can be isolated out of that, which are then purified into a solid state as an isolate, which would, Your Honor, represent something that looks like sugar or flour in a granular state.
Okay, so that's a lead into my question, which is how we determine dry weight. We've talked about different products, right? So how do you measure dry weight in a gummy as compared to a vape, which is vape's gas? I guess the vape is liquid and turns into gas, or vapor, to a gummy, to a drink. How do you compare the weight of something dry to the weight of something wet?
We do moisture analysis on those products as well, and that's negligible. Only the plant is retaining moisture as water per se.
Yeah, let me ask my question a different way. I think I didn't get to it. So can you put, if you're trying to comply with the 0.3% dry weight requirement, can you put more THC in a drink because it's heavier, because it's got a lot of water in it, than you can in a gummy, which is a small thing that's lighter and is I don't know what you call gummy. Is it a liquid or a solid?
That's a solid.
Okay.
It's a gelatin.
Like a gelatin, yeah.
Yeah. That's a great question, Your Honor. The way that we have to approach testing finished goods, as our lab, we're an ISO accredited and DEA accredited lab. We're not able to manipulate samples to misrepresent the composition that the consumer would be receiving. So if we take a beverage, for example, and evaporate all the water out of it and then test it, that's not an accurate test for the product that is being represented by the report that we provide. It's the same reason, it's the same thing as like you get so many milligrams of vitamin C in a glass of orange juice. That would be different if they took all the water out of that glass of orange juice and then tested what the amount of vitamin C would be left in. And so the dry weight basis, and this is coming off of the Farm Bill, the direction from the USDA, which we're licensed with them, as well as the Farm Bill and the various other states, unlike yourself, that have that regulatory framework that require the dry weight basis on plant material, and then the THC content be measured on finished consumer goods as received.
Let me ask my question differently because I'm not sure I understood. The requirement for the end product is that it's 0.0 or 0.3% by dry weight. So let's say I've got a can of soda that's got THC in it, and I don't know how heavy 12 ounces is, but it seems to me it feels like it's about a half pound, maybe a third of a pound when you pick it up. So let's say it's a half pound. Let's say it's eight ounces in weight, even though it's 12 ounces, 12 fluid ounces. And let's say I've got a gummy that's an ounce. Yeah. So does that mean that 8 gummies has the same amount of can have the same amount of THC as that 1 can of soda, or is that comparing apples to oranges?
Apples to oranges. The ability for it's certainly an interesting concept, Your Honor.
But my fundamental question is, how do you measure dry weight for things that aren't dry?
And again, we do pull moisture analysis on those, but we can't misrepresent what the consumer is going to get. If we pull moisture analysis, we're going to have a much higher dose. It's going to yield a much higher THC number analytically than what's actually in the can or the gummy.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you bearing with me on those questions.
Because if we remove the dry weight from there, then we're now calculating the concentration of the same amount of THC, but at a much lower weight.
Thank you.
And that would yield a much higher number that was inaccurate. Sorry.
No, I keep saying thank you, and you've got more to say. It's fine. All right. If your answer's finished, I'll go back to Mr. Dean. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. So by moisture analysis, is that the same thing as dehydrating the product, for example, the drink?
That's correct.
Okay. And so what you're saying is when all the moisture is removed, then you measure the weight of the THC relative to the weight of the other, I guess, dry constituents of a beverage. In this case, we're talking about a beverage. Is that correct?
That would be correct. And again, we're not actually, we can't do that practice.
Okay, I understand.
We're not allowed to do that prior accreditations for.
I understand. But that's how the analysis is conducted to determine dry weight basis, through dehydration?
That's how it would be done, and it would have to be dried down with an inert gas.
One other question related to that is, I think if I understood you correctly, that on a dry weight basis, the Delta 9 that you're testing for, the Delta 9 THC, would have a much greater percentage relative to the other dry dehydrated materials than it would once it's in the drink form.
In a finished good, yes, they would misrepresent the calculation that would come out from my lab on COA would be at elevated numbers of THC that wouldn't actually be, because the moisture calculation, whatever that is, whether it's 15% or 90%, accelerates the THC content by that factor.
Understood. Okay, so whatever the Delta 9 THC level is in its dehydrated form, if I understand you correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, that Delta 9 THC level would actually be less in the actual beverage form.
100% of the time.
Okay. Do you does your company KCA Labs when you test hemp, you only test for Delta 9 percentage?
No, we test again for over 80 plus cannabinoids.
Okay, but do you test for anything other than just the presence of cannabinoids?
No, we do pesticide testing, microbials, mycotoxins, residual solvents, heavy metals, pesticides, we do foreign material inspection.
Okay. All right.
Weedsday Wednesday, everybody. Live cannabis radio show. You're listening to Hemp versus Arizona.
Oh. Can you clarify, one last question, can you clarify the difference between marijuana and hemp under the law?
Clarify the difference.
What would be the difference between what we're calling marijuana, which would be also part of the cannabis sativa plant, but then we're also talking about hemp, which is part of the cannabis sativa plant. What determines the difference?
The level of Delta 9 THC.
Is there any other metric or variable that you're aware of other than the Delta 9 percentage, which I think you testified had to be 0.3% or less? Is there any other metric or variable that can be scientifically tested for that distinguishes hemp from marijuana?
Not that I'm aware of. I know that there's research being done on some different kind of genetic approaches, but nothing that is not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ware. I appreciate it. No other questions, Judge?
All right, you're free to go or stay on the call if you wish. We're gonna take a break now. Let's recess for 10 minutes. We'll see you at 3:11.
Thank you, Judge Warner. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right, we'll see what happens to the live feed right now, if they're going to just skip ahead or if there's going to actually be a 10-minute break. Listening to Weedsday Wednesday.
Okay, we're gonna take a break. Let's talk about it, right? What do you guys think right now? How do you feel about how it's going? There's a few things that I wrote down where it's like, oh, it's interesting to hear when the judge comes in and talks about it.
All right, we'll just go right back to the trial here.
Testimony offered
to make sure everything is in spec, and
that I wanted the court to take judicial notice of. I would like to take judicial notice of the testimony offered for SB 10.
Tom Dean, attorney for HITA, Hemp Industry Trade Association. talking with Judge Warren about the legality of
In connection with
hemp-derived products.
Is there an objection?
I'm not sure it's the entire portion of his testimony, but I think it's essentially a legal source.
Yeah, I think it falls more under legislative history than it does evidence, but I'm going to admit it so that I can consider it. So I'm admitting plaintiff's exhibit 28.
Nothing further from the plaintiff, Judge.
Thank you. State have other evidence?
We have two witnesses, Your Honor. The first one I could call Detective Matche.
He'll come forward.
Oh boy.
Follow the ramp right there up to the witness stand next to me. State and spell your name, please.
Yes, sir. It is Matthew Shea. That is S-H-A-Y, sir.
All right, let's have a seat.
Thanks, sir.
All right.
Just making sure I have the exhibit set up, Judge.
Just a couple more minutes here.
What are you working on? Good afternoon, Detective. What is your current position? Where do you work?
I am currently a detective with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. I work in the Special Investigations Division, and that is a task force position that revolves around narcotic suppression.
How long have you worked in law enforcement?
I've been a cop for 30 years, sir.
All with the Sheriff's Department?
No, sir. I retired from the Phoenix Police Department after 22 years, and then came immediately same day over to the Sheriff's Office.
Can you just give the court, for your background, a summary of the different positions you've had in law enforcement?
Yes, sir. I worked patrol for 3 years. In patrol, obviously, I was first a on-field training. So in other words, they were training me. And then after 2 years, I was a field training officer. After that, I was brought over to the Drug Enforcement Bureau, where I remained for the rest of the time, essentially when I was at the Phoenix Police Department, with the exception of the last 6 months. Last 6 months, I went back to Sunny Slope as a patrol officer again, as I got ready for the retirement section where I was going to move over to the Sheriff's Office. While at the Drug Enforcement Bureau, primarily I was on, I did street squads, I did some conspiracy squad work. I worked with a temporary with the ATF, some temporaries with the DEA, and I was on the technical surveillance squad. My last 7 years with Phoenix PD were on the same task force that I'm on now.
And so we're here to talk about marijuana, hemp. So I want to ask you some questions about your experience in that area.
Yes, sir.
So going back to when you just became a police officer 30 years ago at the academy, you received some basic narcotics training.
Yes, sir. At the academy, you receive basic narcotics training, and that includes production of marijuana, the use of marijuana, production, manufacture of hemp, and the use, I'm sorry, not of hemp, of hashish, and the consumption of hashish.
Then you mentioned transferring to the Drug Enforcement Bureau about 3 years into your career. What type of training did you receive related to marijuana, cannabis products as the Drug Enforcement Bureau?
Sure. So we go to conferences. I go to conferences about twice a year. So that's about 2 weeks out of the year, or 80 hours worth of training at least.
Well, thanks for tuning into Weedsday Wednesday, folks. We will pick this back up next week. We will continue. It'll probably take 2 more weeks to get through the whole thing. We appreciate you being here. Call your Attorney General's office here in Arizona and find out what the heck is going on. I tried to call. They gave me the runaround for like a half an hour. No one's called me back. I'll call again today, try and get specifics on what it is that they're restricting. All right. Belle Star, Cannabis Kid, Silver Sister, we will see you next week. Remember, be smart, be safe, and educate. Happy Weedsday Wednesday, folks. Please smoke a bong for me since I can't. Have an awesome day. Stay hydrated. Stay cool. Stay you. Yeah, Scout, you tell him. You tell him. That's right, you tell him. Yeah. Happy Weedsday Wednesday. Be kind to each other. We love you. Have a great day.